And let's talk beginner teams. In this video right here with timestamps, you will be getting 2 teams for every single 5-star currently available in the game. So you'll be getting a beginner team which includes only the 5-star and then only free-to-play available units, and then you get a more early game team which includes the character as well as gacha exclusive 4-stars and also potential alternatives and replacements and how you can run this character, as well as you'll also get a idea of how you should play the character, how you should play around the character, and on top of that you will also be getting partner recommendations for every single character mentioned. Enjoy! Oh yeah, and this was hella work, so a like, subscription or comment would be greatly appreciated, but then again, you don't have to. So we're going to go in the way they are ordered in the partner section, so we're going to be starting with Luke. Luke is going to be for your beginner team, be paired up with Rei and Mika. It's a double support with Rei taking a bit of a also sub DPS role, while Mika is full on support and Luke is your main DPS. Your main goal with Luke is to shoot as many bullets as possible so that his other abilities become even stronger. The way you can do that is by having, for example, the extra card draw with exhaust, or even standard card draw and the extra AP, because even though Lucas bullets cost you exactly nothing, they still run you cost by him having to play the cards to get those bullets in the first place. So that is your standard Luke team. Then we also have Lucas and Mika. So the idea of the second team is pretty much just bullet spam. The moment you find his brother, you can put them together in a team. Lucas is going to take a bit of a sub DPS role with additional damage every time you play a bullet, and Luke is just going to be able to scale even off of Lucas's bullets, and Mika is going to be there so that you can facilitate that whole shenanigan without you having to worry to run out of anything. So we're just going to make it brief, and some of these might be slightly off, but a lot of you were interested in alternatives. Luke and Mika can pretty much stay together, but you could also replace Mika with a Rei, and as well as you could also run a shielder like Maribel, like Khalpie, like Magna instead of Lucas if you want to run 2 5-stars. With Luke being your main DPS, you're pretty much looking for any of these cards as well as any of their epiphanies. In particular, you want very much the purple as well as the gold card, Dancer the Demon and Finisher Round, as well as Stealth Reload to create the handgun bullets, whereas you have this card as well. He is a main carry, so you are looking for his epiphanies more than you're looking for the other team members. If you want to increase the synergy between Rei and Luke, because you want to run the early team, then your preferable upgrade is this one right here, 40% damage for cards with cost of 1 or below, which then makes it also counts for his bullets. If not, Rei's buff would still apply to someone like a Lucas who has bullets that cost you 1. Let's speedrun partners. I will make a separate video, but in general these are the partner categories. Janet, Zerathea, then Arcad, over Karate, Kiara and Yuri. Pick whatever is highest in the choices. Then next up, let's quickly breeze through it. We have Rei. If you want to gear Rei, her partners are the following: Arwen first, Alyssa second, then Nyx, then Yvonne, and then Noelle. The reasons are all a bit more specific, but you could also run Nyx on her. Then we have the last team member, which is going to be Mika. And for Mika, Arwen first, then Alyssa, then Nyx, then Yvonne, and then Noelle. But this can work quite well depending on if you like. The whole difference is, are you able to draw, right? Otherwise, Nyx isn't as crazy. Khalpie. So beginner team, you pull yourself a Khalpie. You can run Khalpie as your shielder / as your sub DPS. Tressa is going to do a bit of the heavy lifting on the DPS side of things. And Mika is just going to be there to make this all flow smoother. On the other hand, the early team would be a Khalpie and then, for example, a Maribel, so that you're pretty much super tanky, and Khalpie is going to do a bit more of the main DPS role with Mika as a support. If this team is too slow for you, you can replace Maribel with another DPS and then have Khalpie be the dedicated shielder. So it could be anywhere from Mei Lin to Luke to Hugo to whatever you have, or you just keep Tressa in the team. Overall, a pretty solid team, a pretty straightforward team. Let's talk a bit about Khalpie. Main goal remains mostly the same. You want to potentially search for those epiphanies that give you a celestial, like for example right here on the rally skill, so that you can multi-turn play cards. But overall the base synergy is the same thing. You either pull yourself a vulture ejection or you give yourself a vulture ejection with the ultimate, and then you use Greatsword Aquila. Greatsword Aquila just gets 1 cost more expensive, meaning it can trigger Vulture Ejection and then you get extra damage. Overall, that is the most important part. You want Vulture Ejection, which you always have, and you want to find the Greatsword Aquila. All these other cards aren't as important, and this can help put the team together, allowing you to search for more Vulture Ejections. And this can just help you, survive some tough challenges and help break some bosses, which can help with AP generation. Epiphany-wise there, you kind of have to see for yourself. But what I really like is, for example, the increased damage for Vulture Ejection, or what's also quite nice is pretty much anything that's not as shield focused. You can see all of them are kind of shield focused. Like for example, if you play a lot of cards, more shield. If you keep the card in hand, which can be quite nice, you get an extra shield. So this one is a good contender. This one is just a really chunky shield, and the other one is like full shield. But I do prefer the increased damage version, but it kind of depends on your playstyle and how much damage does your main DPS actually do. Alright, so again, let's talk partners really quickly. We have Zeta, who does defense-based damage based on instinct cards, so it's a no-brainer on Khalpie, but it's also someone you have to actually summon for, or you have to get from the shop. So early on, I really recommend Rachel. Rachel just allows you to gain more shields, and whenever you gain a shield, you have a chance to counterattack. It's just a bit of extra damage, but no, the true value is this right here. Gain 200% shield, draw 1 card, whereas Wilhelmina is the weaker of the 4 stars. And then you have Erica, who's all about counterattacks, which isn't really Khalpie's thing. The same with Aishlin as well. It's important to note it's only a 100% shield instead of a 200% shield anymore. The choice is pretty obvious. You either pick the 4-star Eloa or Eloise, or you pick either Antea or Briar. You can pick up Antea from the battle pass should you so desire. And honestly, that's all to know about her partner. Again, but just in case you get it here once more, Arven truly is clutch. This extra permanent damage reduction applied based on how many enemies want to attack you, it just makes you that much more tanky, and it's just a must-have. Magna is going to be your main shielder. You can again pair her up with Tressa. Tressa is going to shoot the daggers, Tressa is going to do the agony, Tressa is going to be where the real DPS comes from, and then you have your Mika, obviously not as a sub DPS, as a support. She's going to provide the AP, because Magna's cards are very, very AP hungry, which is kind of common through pretty much all the characters in the game. And then outside of that, if you have the upgraded team, it's just like the full chunky team. If you pull a Maribel, you can run Magna Maribel. Both of them are going to get counterattacks. Both of them are going to punch back. Nia isn't as fixed anymore. You can still run this whole team with the Mika to heal yourself, with to get more AP, because Magna and Maribel can be quite AP hungry. And if you're looking to do any like premium swaps, you could, for example, run an Orlea instead of Mika or Nia. It works pretty well. She doesn't cost as much AP herself. Or you could just smash a Khalpie right in there with Maribel and have a even more tanky sub DPS, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Slash playstyle. So you obviously always get the ice fragments, which means crystallization and counterattack. Picking this card up is quite nice in that not only do you do a big amount of damage, but you also get a very big shield. This card right here is almost a must-have if you want to do anything in regards to farming or even stand a chance against AoE stages, because if your counters are only single target, you're basically not winning. So yeah. And then counterattack, you can see it obviously right here. Some of these epiphanies are better than others, some of them are the same, but yeah, it's a very defensive playstyle. It has its offensive sides, but it's more of a reactive playstyle based on how much does the enemy hit for, how high do you want your shields, and you really don't want to take any stress, and you do like enemies at attacking you with multi-hitters, because then they get multi-hitted back. Alright, so Magna is pretty straightforward. If you have only the 3-star, pick the 3-star. If you have Rachel, pick Rachel. If you don't have Rachel, pick Wilhelmina. If for whatever reason you have Erica, pick her. If you somehow got your hands on Aishlin, pick her. Zeta doesn't really work for her. I wouldn't really use her even if I had her, even though this one is at least quite decent in the ego skill, but there's no real synergy between her and Zeta. 3-star, 4-star, any of the 5-stars should you have them. You go either with the 3-star or Arwen. If you don't have Arwen, you go with Alyssa. Or if you're running 2 supports, you also want 1 Arwen, 1 Alyssa, because Arwen does not stack. And then you have Nyx and Noelle in pretty much this order. Your beginner team is going to be Rin, Ray, and Mika. The Ray is there for the ability to give you massive morale boost. Morale boosts work really well with Rin's multi-hitters. Rin is there as your main DPS. She's gonna do most of the attacks. And Mika is there to, afford that rather AP heavy playstyle if you can get a kind of rotation going in pulling a lot of Rin cards. And then this one would kind of be a bit of a, to a degree, dream team. But you could also swap out Nia for someone like Ray, someone like Mika. What's also possible is you could try sneaking a Orlea, and you could even try something fancy like a Hugo. But the main goal here is that you can use the support of Cassius to fish for the cards that you need for Rin. Then you can further deck cycle while also having Nia, who barely has any attack cards whatsoever, which means she'll never really interrupt Rin, and that's kind of the shenanigan here. Alright, let's talk Rin and what you should kind of be looking out for as base tips, and that is you want as many of these cards as possible. If you can't get one of the cards, you probably don't want Dark Mist Inner Art. It's one of the most it's one of the least impactful cards, one of the most useless, and if you do have it, this is by far the best awakening in my opinion, with the Dark Mist Annihilation being able to be created. Then on the other hand, also if you can pick up this card allowing you to create both of these secret arts, that is absolutely fantastic. And then outside of that, for this card right here, one of the preferables would be the 4x hitter, the 50 times 2 plus 2 hits on Dark Blade Master Art. And then she is also someone you can just substitute with multiple other cards. Like, for example, I know this is a bit more extensive, but that's because I've mainly played with her here as well. And that is, for example, in our save data, as you can see, we substituted, for example, a legendary card like Pulverize. So anything that's multi-hit, anything that's damage, I mean, look at these effects. That's some crazy effects. 150 damage times 2, draw 1, apply 2 vulnerable. That is pretty damn sweet. Let's quickly talk partners. If you only have 3 stars, pick Douglas. If you only have a 4-star, pick Ritoshka. If you have a choice between Lillian and Ritoshka, always pick Lillian, because Lillian is all about those 1-cost cards or 1 or less, which is perfectly synergistic with Rin. The very best choice is going to be Scarlet. Scarlet just takes Rin to that next level, but at least for now you don't really need it to. Marion also works just as well, and Priscilla is it really depends, but maybe even a bit less desirable than the 4-star. The future remains to be seen. Be familiar with, once again, Arwen at the number 1, then Alyssa if you're running 2 supports, Arwen and Alyssa both, because Arwen doesn't stack. 3-star if you have a 3-star, then any of the 5 stars works as well, but isn't as much of a priority for these supports, honestly. Sweet. Mika right here, same with Arwen, Alyssa, pretty much the same support setup, pretty much the same partners. Nia also kind of similar in Arwen and Alyssa, but you can definitely rank Nyx higher, so should you have a Nyx, you can for example slap it on a Nia, because Nyx is all about the potential for you to be able to draw cards using an ability, so that should be using a card, so if a character can draw with a card, Nyx is worth it. Alright, so Orlea herself is a support, so in no way a main DPS, which is why you give her the help of Tressa and then further boost Tressa with Ray. You don't really have too much of an AP struggle, but should you do so, again, Ray out for Mika. Then the early team would be Orlea, Tressa, Maribel, just maybe pretty much giving you that extra survivability and having Orlea take that healer slash support role. But Orlea is super flexible. If you have multiple 5-stars, you could also run Orlea Luke, Orlea Hugo, Orlea Rin, Orlea Khalpie, right? Orlea Magna. Orlea is very, very flexible. Really quickly. So overall for Orlea, let's talk a bit about the slimes. So by far the most impactful one, depending on if you have a shielder or not, is going to be this heal slime, which allows you to heal every time you keep him in your hand, as well as also having the ability to give you a massive shield should you need to block a bigger hit or something that would potentially put you into stress or even kill you. Then depending on if you have a proper main DPS or not, the Swifty is either a minor or a major focus in that it can do quite a lot of damage. And then these softies, they're kind of just on the side there, but it's nothing that should be super prioritized because their impact isn't felt as much. Then we also have this annoying card. You want to pick it up if you want to run her as a bit more of a sub DPS and doing the extra damage. If not, it is one of those you can kind of skip out on. Something important to note about the growing creature card: if you let the growing creature transform into a 3-star creation, it's out for the fight. So either you play it and you get a 1-star creation, or you let it turn into a 3-star creation, but you won't be able to draw the card again. And then outside of that, there's a couple epiphanies that work decently well. If you want to run a kind of a fun team with Orlea, you can also run Orlea, Beryl, and then Mika, and then you can use Orlea and Beryl 2 together, start preserving a bunch of cards, and yeah, get your will that way. A character that is exactly made for her, and only her, that is Noelle. If you for whatever reason have Noelle, please use her. Otherwise, Arwen priority, Alyssa. Should you run another support, you cannot run double Arwen. If you don't have any of those, use the 3-star, and Nyx doesn't really work on her as well. Tressa, super simple. You have the 3-star, take the 3-star. You have the 4-star, take the 4-star. You have a 5-star, take the 5-star. Bang. You have the 3-star, you pick the 3-star. You have Arwen, you pick Arwen. You have 2 supports, you run Alyssa. Nyx, if you have her for whatever reason, and you do have card draw. Otherwise, Nyx doesn't really do a lot. Mei Lin time. So Mei Lin starter team looks something like this: Mei Lin, Rei, and Mika. Rei working really well with Mei due to Mei having a lot of either cards that are 1 cost or lower cost. Mika just for that AP, so you can get more of those Mei Lin cards out. If you run Mei Lin as your main DPS, you really want her to get in a whole bunch of punches, because those punches are then what kind of like stacks on top of each other, breaks the enemies, gives you more AP and the like. And then for the early team, you for example have the option to run Mei Lin and then Selena. Nia is kind of a free spot. You can either have Nia there, you can have Mika there, you could have Rei there, you could have Cassius there, depending on what you kind of feel like. Overall, great synergy between these 2 passion units. The same works if you were to swap out Selena's as a sub DPS to Maribel, if you need a bit more survivability. And then Mei Lin works with every single 5-star pretty much. So I guess the only one she would clash with would probably be Rin. So you could run Mei Lin Kayron if you feel like it. You could run Mei Lin Hugo, which works decently well. Mei Lin Khalpie is pretty damn sweet. Then, like for example, Mei Lin Khalpie and a Mika. Then Mei Lin you could also run with Luke, though it depends a bit. I wouldn't really recommend it as much. And then Mei Lin Magna, also a no-brainer. And that's kind of the whole thing. Like, she really works with a lot of people. Lin playstyle. You have this card from the very beginning, which allows you to apply passion weakness. So if you run a passion unit alongside of her, you deal more damage. The most impactful cards is definitely going to be the Flame Dragon Sovereignty, because it's always effective. It deals a ridiculous amount of damage, and that is a card you definitely want to have. And then Unity of attack and defense pretty much allows you to play a card for 0, then play 2 other basic cards for 0 as well. There's some very sweet upgrades in here, like 2 morale, 2 resolve for 1 turn, or for 1 turn per card. There's some pretty sweet options in here, like for example this one. You create 2 strike cards at cost -1, so they now stay in your deck. And that works as well. So all of a sudden you have more random punches that cost you nothing. The Rising Dragon Spire works in that you use someone else's card first, then her card after, to trigger the extra hit, so that it also implies the embers. And then apparently you also have that Ravage state. So there you go. Partner choices, the most optimal would be Marianne. But also Priscilla, the one you can get from the Battle Pass, is pretty damn good in that she allows you to deal more damage to targets that are broken. And that is just something that Mei Lin is really, really good at. Outside of that, Scarlet works as well. If you have the 3-star, pick the 3-star. If you have the Ritoshka, pick Ritoshka. But if you have Lillian, Lillian has prio over any of the other normal options. Again, you have the 3-star, you pick the 3-star, you have Arwen, you pick Arwen, you run 2 supports, you pick Arwen and Alyssa, and Nyx isn't as great because she doesn't really do card draw. Double support, you have one of them run Arwen, the other one Alyssa. Outside of that, if you have a way to draw cards and you have a Nyx for whatever reason, then make sure you use a Nyx. This EP ego skill is also quite nice. If not, just use the 3-star. Let's talk Veronica. Veronica is in a somewhat similar spot to what Orlea was, in that you can run her as your main DPS, but she doesn't really fulfill that role as much. She's a bit more of a, she is there and she does a bit of damage at the end of the turn and some helpful things like card draws and the like. So it's gonna be, if you want to play her at main DPS for whatever reason, you run Veronica, Rei and Mika. But outside of that, if you pull a Selena, you can run Veronica and Selena together. Selena applies passion weakness, Veronica can make use of it. You could also run something like Verona Veronica, and then any main DPS. Again, a lot of options for you here. So it could be a Tressa, it could be a Hugo, it could be a Luke, it could be even, I guess, an Orlea if you really want to. Pretty much anything like a Kayron can work as well. She doesn't really take up much space, she does her own thing, and she helps you, yeah, get through content. Then the supports then again are wholly open book. Anywhere from Nia to Rei to Mika to Cassius work equally as fine and just as well. So the most important one is the ballista, and what you need to know is that you want an epiphany for the ballista, and then you pick the ballista that you think fits your team best. Like for example, if you think your team is lacking AoE damage, then all of a sudden the giant ballista looking very good at 120% extra damage to all enemies, or if you think you need more crit, or if you are facing a lot of enemies that have, for example, shield damage. So you kind of have to like look for that. Or if you're looking for like double hits as extra attacks, she also scales very well with other extra attack characters. So if you know someone like that, you can just pair them straight up. Most of her cards are quite useful, and especially if you turn them into upgrade cards, they become invisible once you play them. These stacks of reload, the way those work is that reload just increases the damage of ballista. As you can see, it's plus 50%. Going then all the way up to a 150% or 200%. So getting these reload stacks should be at the top of your priority. So make sure she has a reload stacks. Make sure you pick epiphanies that can also help in generating some of these reload stacks, or just go for more ballistas. And this card, for example, is quite nice. When another combatant uses a skill card, you gain reload. Partners are as following: have a 3-star pick Nasia, have Daisy pick Daisy. Between Rosaria and Daisy, prefer Rosaria. Should you have any of the 5 stars of Marin or Solia, pick those. The reason Rosaria is quite well is because she increases extra additional attack damage right here, and she uses a bunch of upgrade and skill cards, allowing you to gain that extra morale, as well as also this here is quite sweet. 3-star, then Arwen and Alyssa. You cannot run 2 Arwens together. If you're running 2 supports, make sure it's either Arwen and Alyssa or Arwen and somebody else. Same shenanigan, just make sure you don't run the same people together. So Renoa time. Renoa is going to be your main DPS. She's going to be your engine. You want to play her cards as much as possible. Most of her cards are in that 1 cost to potentially even 0 cost range, which makes her perfect to be paired with Rei. Mika is just there to have Renoa shoot as much as possible. The more she shoots, the more damage she deals, the more freedom you have. But because she also plays around with the discard mechanic, you might even be able to get away without having to use a Mika. Then a early team possibility would be, for example, for you to run a Renoa and then a double support in Cassius in Nia, because Cassius will be able to help you search out specific cards, whereas Nia is going to be able to just overall increase your damage output, even though it changed a bit more significantly from the beta, but she's still there. Her decibel still works, and you can still search for specific Renoa cards. Then again, Renoa can also be run with any of the more passive 5 stars. So that's going to be Orlea, Veronica, Khalpie, Magna. Any of the non-main DPS 5 stars can absolutely rock in a double 5-star team here. So let's talk Renoa. Renoa, your main goal is to, for example, use this to deal damage, discard all dirge bullets and plus 50% for that amount of damage, which means you do a big hit of damage, and then because you discarded the dirge bullets, every single one of those discarded dirge bullets is going to do an extra attack. So the last ditch assault is quite important, as well as you also want the Flower of Devoured Fate, because what it allows you to do, for example, with that 1 cost epiphany is gain a massive amount of dirge bullets. Overall, she is again classified as a main DPS, so you preferably want to get as many cards as possible from her, like for example this interaction between a single dirge bullet and her. Epiphanies and the like, anything that has to do with dirge bullets is pretty much a keeper. And then this skill right here also allowing you to pull all dirge bullets from the draw pile and graveyard into your hand, which can again set up a massive last ditch assault or any other dirge bullet shenanigans. Choice in Kiara, which is all about how many cards are in the graveyard, and because she creates so many dirge bullets, the graveyard is going to get stacked up quite a lot, and when you discard a card, you get plus 25% attack damage, but 5-star partners are for the future. If you have a 3-star, use the 3-star. If you pull Carity, use Carity. If it's between Arcad and Carity, pick Arcad. And then should you pull a 5-star like Janet, she is also still a no-brainer, even though we're not quite sure what exactly happens when you use 5 bullet cards. Do you then get a handgun bullet from Luke, or does a dirge bullet count as a handgun bullet? So Nia partners, again, she is a support, so it's Arwen, Alyssa, then a Nyx, Yvonne, and Noelle. Arwen can't be used twice, keep that in mind, even though he is, or she is, I don't even know, very powerful. Cassius is someone that actually prefers Nyx because it can reliably draw, meaning you will reliably get the damage bonus, but then again, same thing, Alyssa and Arwen, either both together if you're running double support, Arwen if you're running single support. Same is true if you're running a Mika, it's a lot of the same shenanigans. And then if you're looking for any other of the partners, look for their section in this video. Hugo time. Hugo's beginner team is pretty much something that can carry you for quite a while, and that is you're going to be running Hugo as a sub DPS slash attacker follow-upper to the created daggers of a Tresor. So every time Tresor attacks and Hugo has his stacks, he's going to do a follow-up attack, giving you big damage, and then you can run a Mika to afford that high AP lifestyle. Then you also have the ability to, for example, swap a Mika out later down the line for other supports, either Nia, Cassius, Cassius, or even Rey, which can work, but the synergy isn't as great. Hugo can as well be run as a sub DPS next to other 5 stars, like for example, you could try running with a Rin, you could try running with a Luke, you could try running him together with a Khalpie. There is a plentitude of options you can take here, and those are kind of what you're looking at. Let's briefly talk Hugo. His fixes approach, the plus 40 extra attack of Hunt Commands cards just overall massively increases his damage output. Multi-hit cards are always really nice because they scale well with additive percentage increases. This one is pretty much what gets him going, but you also already have it Outbreak of War and you pretty much start into it with it. Then some of these epiphanies are better than others, but overall when another combatant uses an upgrade or skill card, gain 1 Hunt Commands can work out as well. And then outside of that, you don't need all of his attack cards, especially if you run him with someone like a Rin who doesn't want enemies or others to have a lot of attack cards, and then you just are kind of looking for more of that utility. Like for example, upon gaining the Hunt Command stack, draw 1 attack card per turn, which could help you pull the cards off, for example, your main DPS. So, but do not underestimate the damage numbers my boy can put out. Again, you have the 3-star, pick the 3-star, you have Rosaria, pick Rosaria, you have Daisy, pick Daisy. If you have Solea or Tina, pick any of those, Tina being the prime choice for Hugo. Pretty similar, both you preferring Arwen, Alyssa, you can also run a Nyx if you have a draw ability. Having Yvonne in there only if you don't have any of these. Important to note, as always, Arwen cannot be used twice. And then Mika is pretty much, as you see, the same shenanigan. So time for big girl Haru. Haru has 3 teams that can all work pretty much just as well. You have your standard option in which you run Haru, and then you, for example, run something like a Mika and an Owen, which can work together with her as the main DPS. She's a bit of a tighter spot because you kind of want to run her together with a unit that could be triggered through Celestial, like for example Emir, but Emir doesn't really perform as well. Then if you actually get some other characters, there are a lot more open options that open up for Haru. Like for example, you can run Haru as well as a Maribel. So you can have, for example, a Haru, then you can slot in a Maribel as the team's primary shielder and get yourself a Mika for the AP regeneration. Or as you might have already seen in the starter team, is you can have a Cassius with a Mika and a Maribel, whereas Cassius is then the one fishing for the anchor shots, fishing for the anchor pullbacks, and that is then Haru being your main DPS. And absolutely the craziest, or not even craziest, but one of the bigger synergies has to be Haru and her 2-cost cards versus Khalpie and her Celestial cards. It's just a very, a very nice match, especially if you can get the 2nd Celestial upgrade for that double Celestial synergy. So Haru, let's talk Haru. What do you want to keep with her cards? What do you want to do? So overall, her main damage is anchor shot. You want to shoot as many anchor shots as possible. You want to stack it as high as possible. And whenever possible, use anchor shot for a turn. That's your minimum requirement. Then if you can use anchor shot and get it back with anchor pointer, use anchor shot again. If you only have anchor pointer, use anchor pointer, get anchor shot, use anchor shot. Only when you have AP to spare do you ever use lift, anchor or charge energy. It's more important to just use anchor shot. If you end up in a situation where you get the option to clone any of these anchor shot cards, do so. Anchor shot is going to be your main source of damage, and then you also have that occasional power charge to just help you deal AoE damage, which can be made even stronger with, for example, charge energy. She is a main DPS, so all of her cards are pretty much important, and there is some very pleasant epiphanies in here. Her featured limited partner banner is the best. She gets up to 35% damage for both anchor shot and the AoE damage. This card also then further increases the damage of the next attack card used by the assigned combatant based on how much AP you have in your turn. So this is obviously the best in slot, but it is not actually what you have to go for. For Haru, if you can afford it, obviously Asteria is the best partner. She gets up to 35% damage. Haru, that is for her 2-cost cards, which are both the AoE and anchor shot. You can also increase the damage by 20% based on plus 20%, and as well as the cost of the cards in hand. So if you have a 10 cost, all of a sudden you do 200% more damage with the next attack card used. If you don't have an Asteria, Ritoshka is your best choice, because Ritoshka boosts the cost of 2-cost cards, whereas Lillian would only be 1-cost cards. Then you have Douglas, who is going to be your option if you don't have any of the 4-stars. And then outside of out of these characters, it's either gonna be Marianne or Priscilla if you're breaking characters a lot, or you could even use a Scarlet, but you then have to be careful that you don't use other combatants' offensive cards, kind of in a similar way to how Rin works. But alongside Haru, your prime choice is Arwen. If you're running 2 supports alongside Haru, it's Arwen and Alyssa. If you don't have any of those yet, run an Yvonne until you do. And then you have a Nyx should your support be capable of drawing cards. And then outside of that, just check out this video if you're looking to pair with the specific 5-star, because we also have the partners there covered as well. Exactly has one beginner, one early team. You run Kayron with Tressa and Mika. Kayron in his own kind of world, trying to banish a bunch of cards, trying to get his own void damage out, and then Tressa, who can also banish her own cards by you exhausting those cards and by playing those daggers. And then Mika as your support. You can also just run Kayron completely as your main DPS and swap in something like a tank. Kayron is your prime example of a main DPS. He doesn't pair as well with other main DPSs, like for example Rin and similar characters like that. On the side of the support, getting the more AP heavy options is quite useful, so Mika, but you can definitely make him work with Cassius as well if you're looking for more card draw and similar shenanigans. So due to Kayron being a main DPS, all of his cards are quite useful. You want to get as many of those as possible. The Oath of Vanity is especially useful in that it turns this futility into a card with an actual effect. Especially with some of these upgrades, there can be some pretty nice combinations. Outside of that, you also have the Brand of Annihilation, which is the card that also reduces its cost should you, for example, exhaust the daggers of a Tressa. So get Tressa's dagger, play Tressa's daggers, all of a sudden Brand of Annihilation becomes cheaper, whereas the Black Hole itself is more specific due to you exhausting futility. Yeah, pretty much similar to that. So that is Kayron. He's a main DPS. You really want to put as much focus as possible into him, and his game plan is pretty simple. Stack as many of these futilities, banish them, use them, destroy them, and also obviously it's just 200% damage and 180% damage per futility instead of whatever kind of weird math calculation that is. So this team couldn't be easier. Zetera, if you have Zetera, Eloise, if you have Eloise, and then it's Antea or Briar. Briar has prior over Antea. And then that same thing is pretty much true for Tressa. Tressa also, you have Zetera, Eloise, and then you have Antea having slight prior over Briar. But most of us, or most of you, are just going to run Eloise. And yes, you can run 2 copies of her at the same time. It doesn't really make a difference. And then lastly, you have, for example, Mika or your standard support setup in that Arwen first, then Alyssa. If you don't have any of those, use Yvonne, and then a Nyx or Noelle. But Noelle is pretty much a Orlea exclusive. This was a ton of work. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to let me know down below what other kind of videos you think you want to see, and also a subscription would be fantastic. As always, we see each other in the next one. Peace!